My name is Procopio Martinez. I'm called Popo for short. I was born in San Marcial, New Mexico. My parents were Francisco Martinez, Lupita Alderete Martinez. My paternal grandfather was Pedro Martinez and my Teresita Aragon Martinez. My maternal grandparents were Procopio Alderete and Feliciana Baca Alderete, Barreras Alderete. I was born in San Marcial, New Mexico, in the county of Socorro, and in 1918. And in 1929, there was a flood in San Marcial. There was a real heavy storm to the north of San Marcial, all the way up to Santa Fe and farther up north. And then the Rio Grande got very much water in it. So the water flowed down towards San Marcial, which is about 80 some miles from Albuquerque. And before the flood, there was a big rain here in the north, and then all the three rivers got together: the Rio Grande, el Rio Salado, and Rio Puerco. Those two rivers came into the Rio Grande, so the flow was pretty strong going down south towards Elephant Butte Dam. Before the town flooded, when the river overflowed, there had been heavy rains in San Marcial, and the arroyos, the water came down from the arroyos, from up in the hills, what we knew as Old Town, San Marcial, San Isario, and San Jeronimo, because we were in the valley, and the water came down from the hills due to the heavy rain. Well, that night, it's a little hazy in my mind what time the rain started, but it started drizzling, and then pretty soon it got more intense, and then there was a lot of thunder, a lot of lightning, and then pretty soon we started hearing walls coming down and roofs, homes. It was a very terrifying situation. That went on all night long, and that was due to the arroyos coming down, and there was already enough water in the town itself because it had been raining, earlier. So in the morning when we got up, we went out to view the damages and what had happened, and we saw a lot of homes that came down, and there were bad cracks and bad structural damage to a lot of the homes and buildings. We went throughout the town and the stores, the downtown where there were the stores. There was a lot of damage there, and a lot of them had come down. And most of the buildings were made out of adobe, so there was a lot of damage. So we went around. I was 11 years old, and me and other kids went around the town looking at the damage and finding out what really happened, what went on. And we saw that a lot of the people were crying, and they were feeling pretty bad because they had lost their homes. It was evident that they would never be able to live in those homes. So what happened here is that most of the people went to the higher parts of the city, or the towns that I mentioned a while ago, San Jerónimo, Old Town, and San Isario. And the Red Cross had set up tents, and they were feeding and clothing the people and all that. They were prepared for that, as they usually are. That's the American Red Cross. So that went on for a few days, and then my father, who was working for the railroad, was caught in the outskirts of Albuquerque, San Marcial, I'm sorry. And so he swam to the home that we were living temporarily in, that the railroad had furnished for us, because he was an employee of the railroad. This was two-story houses owned by the Santa Fe Company. So eventually, my dad swam quite a ways. I would say maybe a mile and a half. And he was trying to put the furniture up on the second floor, because the water was deep and the first floor was going to be covered. He put as much of the furniture on top of the second floor as he could. Well, then a few days later, the river overflew. And I had gone, because most of the people had gone to the higher levels, higher parts of the community. And so I decided that I was going to go over there and play with the boys. Everybody had left, except a few families that were people from the railroad, that worked for the railroad. So when I was going up there, I was about waist deep in the water, and somebody was shouting out from up in the hill, and they were talking to me, and I couldn't hear what they said. I just kept saying, what? I couldn't hear what they were saying. So pretty soon, a man by the name of Félix Barreras was coming from that direction in a horse, riding a horse. And he says, Martinez, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm going over there to play with the boys. That they all left town, you know. And he says, those people are talking to you from up in the hill. I say, I know, but I can't hear what they're saying. They're saying that the river broke, that the river bank broke, to get the heck out of there. So he says, come on, and he picked me up in a horse and took me out of there. And then he says, I'm going downtown. Like I said, he said, I'm going downtown. I said, my mother and my family is over there, my brothers and sisters. He says, well, I'll let them know you're here so they won't worry. And so about an hour later, or half hour later, about an hour later, my whole family was coming in a wagon. They had been picked up by a Cedillo family, Conrado Cedillo. I thought that was the one. My brother Gil says it was Pablo Ortega. And well, anyway, so we went up, and we were put up in tents up in a higher level. But the thing that happened was the whole town went when the river broke. You could see pianos, animals, horses, cows, and buildings and debris from the homes, all going down the river. And what happened, what we were told, was that the Elephant Butte Dam had been shut, so the water backed up towards San Marcial. And that was one of the reasons that the river broke. They didn't have no runoff after they blocked it over there. And that's the story of San Marcial.
Tell me about your dad, or any memories you have of your dad or your mom or your grandparents, or what you remember of them.
Well, my maternal grandfather died when I was a year old. I never knew him. I don't remember him. Just what I'm told about him. His name was Procopio. They named me after him. And incidentally, my wife wanted to name my son Martin Procopio, and I said, no, don't do that. I've had a lot of problems with that name. A lot of people can't write it down in this English-speaking country, which I was born in. I'm not a migrant, immigrant. I was born and raised here. This is my country. My grandmother, my maternal grandmother, came with us here to Albuquerque, and she lived right in this house. There was 13 of us living in this house at one time. That was before the addition. And so it was pretty crowded, but we managed. And then my paternal grandfather moved over here to Albuquerque too. He was a railroader. He was transferred here. He was a blacksmith at the railroad. Very, very dignified person. And very strong. He had real brawny arms.
What was his name?
Pedro. His name was Pedro. My paternal grandfather my grandmother was Teresita Aragon Martinez. She passed away here several years after we left San Marcial. My grandfather lived on longer, and he and I got very close, spent a lot of time together. He just lived 2 doors down from my house, the house on the corner, the house where you people live now. But it was an adobe house. Later on they knocked it down. We used to be bothered with floods here too. And so he finally passed away. But your mother knew him. My wife knew him. And very colorful person.
What about your brothers and sisters? Tell me a little bit about them. Who's the oldest?
My brothers and sisters, we were 7 brothers and 2 sisters. My oldest brother was Crescencio, Chris. And then followed my sister Rosalie. And then my brother Gil, who passed away a few weeks ago, a month or so ago. Then I followed. And then my sister Lydia. And then my brother Pete. And then my brother Tony. And then my brother Frank. And then my brother Mel. He was the youngest one. So that takes care of the whole family. Like I said one time, there was 13 of us living in this house. Because my grandmother was with us, and her brother moved in with us, and then there was 11 of us. 11 children, 9 children, and my mother and dad. So we've been here since 1929, and most of our life has been, my life has been, with the exception of 1 year that we lived in Barelas, I have lived here since 1930. In 1929 we came to Albuquerque. Later on, because I was one of the oldest in the family, my brother Chris had already married, and Brother Gil I followed him in age. And times were very hard. It was right after the Depression. So I dropped out of school. I started, skipping, looking for work, because our family was in dire need. My dad had a heavy load to carry. And so I tried to get in the CC camps, and they wouldn't take me. They says, your dad has one of the best jobs that there is. At that time it was true. So I kept going and going and going. The need was very, very strong, And so finally I decided to write to the governor. I wrote to Governor Tingley, Clyde Tingley, and I told him our situation. And I received a letter almost immediately. And he said, go to the induction center. They have a letter, a copy of this letter, and they will take care of you. See, I had been refused I don't know how many times. I used to go every day for months. And that's what they would tell me. But then when the governor told me to go report over there, I did, and right away they let me in. So I went into the CC camp. I was 17 years old. And the best thing that ever happened to me. I learned discipline. I learned work ethic. And today I'm one of the hardest workers that there is anywhere. Work is my middle name. I'm not afraid of work. I love to work. And at 82 years old, with a prosthesis, leg prosthesis, with a broken ankle, with a knee replacement, a heart patient because I had heart surgery, open heart surgery, and then I had other operations. I'm still working. Now I'm working in the chili business. For myself, really. But what happened here, we used to put so much red chili every year. And about 3 years ago, I decided that, I says, I'm going to keep on drying chili. I think I can, worst comes to worst, I think I can sell it. I know we can't eat that much. So I dried 17 sacks of chili that year. And I sold it. And people were clamoring for it, because it was the original local chili, hot and tasty, and a lot of people like it that way. It happens that we've got away from the local chili. Now they've got all types of chili. You don't even know what you're buying. They have experimented, and they have mixed seeds and grains, or whatever you call it, and it's not the same. The local chili is the one that's got the taste, and that's a fact. I'm speaking from personal experience, and I've been a chili eater all my life. When I was young, when we were babies, they didn't have Gerber's baby food. They fed us chili and bean juice. That's what we used, plus milk. We had a lot of milk. Every family owned a cow at that time. I went into a CC camps at 17 years old. As most people know, a lot of people don't. We were paid $30 a month. $25 was sent to our parents, to our homes, and we kept $5 for us for a month. With that, we could buy cigarettes if we wanted, candy, soda pops, whatever. My favorite was soda pop and a candy bar every night before I went to bed, because I wasn't smoking. Later on I picked it up, and I wish I hadn't. When I was in the CC camp, like I said, I was 17 years old. I went in 1935. like I said, I dropped out of school. So what happened is that I was one of the smallest, the youngest ones in the CC camp, in that particular camp, which was in Manzano, volunteer. And some of the older boys used to make a comment, this little guy isn't going to last through the winter. That's what they used to say. Well, this little guy lasted 4 winters, and they all dropped out, most of them dropped out. Most of them went home, they got married, or dropped out, or they went to something else. And so that was my CC camp experience.
Were there any brothers or sisters that you were closer to?
All of my brothers and sisters I was close to. I was pretty close to Uncle Tony, Brother Tony, because he and I worked in construction a lot. And then now in my later years, since I only had one sister, my sister Lydia, who was a wonderful sister, and I have spent a lot of time together. My brother Gil, who I spent a lot of time with, was a good brother, my older brother, and I loved him. And like I said, he passed away about a month ago, and I really miss him. He was not only a brother, he was a good friend. We spent a lot of time together. In the CC camp, I began my carpentry career, my apprenticeship. So when I got out of the CC camp, first thing I do is join the union, Carpenters Local Union 13, number 13, of the United Brotherhood and Carpenters of America. I went to Denver, and at that time there was it was considered the war effort. So I went over there and I started building barracks. That's what we were building, barracks for the military people. I worked there, and I worked in Gallup, where they were building ammunition dumps. And then later on, I went to Deming in El Paso, and I worked here in Albuquerque at the base. It was considered part of the war effort. And so I had a deferment from the service. So in the service, I went in 1943. When I went to the service. That was 2 years after the beginning of the war, I guess. But during that time, I worked in what they call the war effort, in construction, in bases, and ammunition bases, dumps, what they call it.
What did you do while you were in the service?
When I was in the service, I was, let me see if I can get the word. Well, I was put in the Armed Guard of the Navy, what they call the Armed Guard. I was chosen for that. But before I went into service, when I went to the induction center in Santa Fe, and I passed my examination, they told me you could go to any branch of the service that you want. So I don't know why I thought the Navy was the best, and it turned out to be the best. One thing I didn't want to join the Army, because they were going on maneuvers over there to the swamps and all that, where there were a lot of snakes and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't about to go to one of those places. I always dreaded snakes. And they had them there. They had all kinds. I guess they had crocodiles and all that too. So I wasn't about to go on maneuvers there. So I went in the Navy, and like I say, they assigned me to the Armed Guard of the Navy. The Armed Guard of the Navy sailed in merchant ships, what they call merchant ships. The merchant marines were the sailors. They sailed the ships, and we were the gunners. We protected them. the ship. That's what I did in my Navy career. And I went, my first trip was to Alaska. And talk about cold weather. That was it. Father this morning was asking me, Father Manuel was asking me if I saw the sun. When was the sun? When did they show the sun over? I said I never saw the sun. It was all the time. The sun was not. And anyway, I came from there, and they assigned me that same boat. Incidentally, that boat had broken up at sea, and the first 3 months that I was assigned to it was in dry dock where they were repairing it. And so 3 months, about 3 months. Then we sailed, and the first trip was to Alaska. Then from there I came back and put us in what they call the pineapple run. From here, from Frisco to Alaska. And we used to take troops with them, back and forth, back and forth. Then we came back to my home base, which was in Treasure Island, San Francisco and Oakland, between. And they put me on another ship, signed me to another ship, and this ship was, I had to go to Seattle to board that one. While I was over there, I was working around the camp, and I was doing carpentry work. So the chief petty officer that was in charge there says, you don't have to go to sea, you can stay here and work at the base. And I said, no, I want to go with my shipmates. I want to stay with them. So I was assigned to a ship, and we went to, it was an oil tanker. So that old tanker took us all over the South Pacific and delivering fuel. When we got out of there, I saw a lot of islands. I went to a lot of islands. Incidentally, let me see, at that time, yes, at that time, I had visited, before I went, I had visited my brother here, and his sister-in-law was there. And her husband was overseas, Arturo Silva. And she asked me, please, see if you run across him and let me know how he's doing, and so forth. So I went every island I hit, I would ask if that company was there. I said no. He was a Seabee, a Navy Seabees. So when I got to Guadalcanal, I asked if that company was there. He says, yes, it is. They're in Tulagi. Tulagi was another little island. So I went there, and sure enough, he was there. So I asked for him, and it says he's out on the work detail. He'll be back here about a little later on in the afternoon. So I waited for him. Now I don't know if you want to listen to this or not. Well, anyway, when he came in, I sat behind the wall, and I got him from the back. And I says, who am I? Who am I? He says, I don't know. I talked to him in Spanish. ¿Quién soy? ¿Quién soy? And he said, I don't know, but please let me know. I haven't spoken in Spanish in all this time I've been here. You see. And so it ended up that he and I grew up in the neighborhood. Arturo Silva, he was in Dallas Brothers. So we spent some time together there. We drank practically all the beer they had at the base. He had coupons and all that, and he wanted to talk. He had a very special friend there that wanted to hang around with. He says, please leave us alone. I haven't seen this man in a long time. We have a lot to talk about. So the guy went away, poor guy. But anyway, he went and got all the beer that he could get. He had coupons. And we sat there by the seashore and drank beer. And so So I came back to the States after we unloaded a few. And see, a tanker like that is very, very very easy to blow up if something hits you. So when we got off that tank, I said, thank God. All of us said, thank God. You know, there was a certain amount of fear to be out there in the middle of the ocean with fuel, you know, in the ship. So then I came back to my base, and I was assigned to an ammunition ship, which was worse. So that ammunition ship took me to India, Calcutta, India. And so it took us 2 weeks to unload. We didn't do the unloading, which is people there did. And then from there on, we were going to go to Japan. And we went by an island named Perth. No, not Perth. Well, before I went to India, we went through Perth, through Australia. And then on the way back, we hit another point in Australia, on the far end of the land, of the island. And from there on, we were going to Okinawa. And we stopped at this place, what we call the Drink, which is anchored down there outside of the island. And at night we used to go to the movies. That was Saipan and Tinian. They were together. And there's a lot of history about Saipan and Tinian. There was a lot of wars there. But at that time there was nothing but American soldiers, or American servicemen. So we were there when they let us know that the war was over. So almost immediately we came back to the States. And I was discharged about that time. I was discharged in February of 46.
What were some of the happiest times of your life?
Happiest time of my life?
Not to say that you don't have any more happy times, but...
Well, the happiest time of my life, well, of course, I love my family, my parents, and my brothers and sisters. But one of the happiest times of my life was my wife, marrying my wife. When I came back from the service, I had seen how the Merchant Marines operated. See, and I was going to join the Merchant Marines. And those are civilians, but they go all over the world. And they were making the money. Those were the people that were making the money. We were making peanuts. But they were jealous of us because we got credit for the war, fighting the war. And we were, not me personally, but the other sailors were envious of them because they were making all the money. And they couldn't get along with each other, the Merchant Marines and the sailors. They were always, you know, jealous and fighting and arguing and all that. And I was neutral. I got along with both. I always am able to. Just like I got along with the guys from the South and the North. They were always fighting the Civil War. They would start discussing in a nice way, and they ended up fighting each other. And one time they asked me, "Who are you for?" I said, New Mexico was neutral. It wasn't even a state then. I said, we were a territory. We were neutral. I was neutral. Besides, I think you guys are crazy. I told them. The Civil War is over. But getting back to the happy days, the day that I met your mother, your grandmother, I was working over there in the front yard, and a little lady, about 4 or 5 years old, came to the fence she was standing over there ways. He came to the fence, and he said, "Hi," he said, "¿Cómo estás?" Spanish. He didn't speak English at that time, I guess. Like we all have spoken Spanish all our lives. And I says, "Who's that girl?" "That's Minya, mi hermano. ¿Quieres hablar con ella?" "Sí." So he called her. "¿Quieres que la llame?" "Sí." So he called her to the fence, and we talked, and then we became friendly. We exchanged a few words, and then pretty soon we got pretty serious about each other. That was one of the happiest days of my life. Other important days that were pleasurable, that I enjoyed a lot, was the stint in the Navy that I spent in the Navy. I really liked the sea. That's why I wanted to go back again. This time it was going to be a civilian job with the Merchant Marines. But they go, well, you can pick your ship, your destination, where you want to go, they ask you. In the Navy, they didn't ask you, they told you. And another one was CC camp days. Like I said, that's where I learned discipline and how to work hard.
What parts in New Mexico did you help build in the CC camps?
I started at Manzana, New Mexico, here over the other side of the mountain here, Manzana Mountain. A beautiful, beautiful country. Working out in the open, building a road up to the tower, and just working on the roads. Very healthy. A lot of times they would send one of us to get water, and they had this spring, beautiful spring. The water was so cool and so clear and so pure. And we used to go with a whole bunch of canteens and fill them up and bring them to the rest of the men. It was very healthy. I worked at that time in the rain and the snow and the wind, and I didn't mind it a bit. I got tougher than leather, and I'm still tough. If you don't believe it, let's go around or two.
Tell me about yourself too. What you like, what you don't like.
What I like?
Like foods, just what you like to do when you were young and now too.
Oh, when I was young in San Marcial, our
Hobbies or
pastime was, for one thing, going to the stockyard where they used to embark cattle, horses, sheep, hogs, and all that. We used to go up there and buck the little calves. We always picked on the smallest one because the larger ones were too much for us. You have to keep in mind that I was about 8, 9, 10 years old then. That was one of the best times. The other one, we used to love to go to what we used to call La Mesa. It was a flat mountain up there. You see it when you go by, when you go south. La Mesa, it's a flat land like that. Down below, they call it La Mesa too, that was a farming community. Very rich soil. A little farther to the north was Valverde. That had a big history. That's where the Civil War, they did a lot of fighting during the Civil War. Because there was an encampment, what do they call it, where the cavalry was. They call that Fort Craig. It's right in the vicinity. But we used to go up to that mountain, and we used to cross a railroad, cross a bridge on the railroad. In fact, they showed the bridge in a newspaper yesterday, I think, and or today. And We used to cross that, and then we'd get to the bottom of the mountain. And then before we went in there, we used to like to go in a cave. It was a cave like room size inside. Not very large, but you could stand up, and it was a good size. Maybe 10 by 10, 10 by 12 or whatever. And we used to crawl. There was a hole we used to crawl in. We always did that before we went up in the mountain. And today I wouldn't do that because there must have been rattlesnakes all over that place. And I'm deathly afraid of rattlesnakes. Well, anyway, we used to go there first, and then we used to climb the mountain, get out of the cave, climb the mountain, and go to the other side where they had sand dunes. And we used to play in the sand dunes. We used to jump. There was a place where you could jump to the sand, a high place and then a low place. And we used to take food over there. We used to take sandwiches and food to cook, potatoes and eggs and chili for sure, and stuff like that. We used to go swimming in the river a lot. At that time, there were no swimming pools anywhere. The river was, I still, when I go through by here and see the river, I always think about it and how cool it was and how nice that water was. Incidentally, one time I almost drowned. There was a heavy current and it was taking me away. And this guy, Clyde Smith was his name, Simpson, he was a big guy. Probably not over 18 years old, 17 years old, but to me he seemed like it. And then he was pretty large in size anyway. He's the one that dragged me out. Otherwise I'd be in history by now. Well, after I married your grandmother, we had 3 children. Martin was the oldest. Next was Lydia, and then the third one was Evangeline, whom I love so much. Then my grandchildren came around. Angie was the first one that married, and she had Debbie, Jason, and Matthew. And then Lydia married with Uncle Bill, and Benji married Uncle Mike, and Lydia and Bill had Melissa, Rachel, Jeffrey, Jonathan, and
Susan.
Did I mention Susan? Susan. And then Rachel had Christelle, and then my granddaughter Debbie married. She married Jacob Saavedra, and they have Andrew. I'm forgetting the one that married the last, my son Martin, married Gladys Martinez Flores from Puerto Rico, and they had a son by the name of David. Very good guy sometimes, most of the time. And Marie, my granddaughter. I don't think I missed anybody. Did I mention Matthew and Jason? Debbie? Okay. Debbie, Matthew, and Jason belongs to Mike and Benji. Well, about my dad, he was a in the baseball team in San Marcial. San Marcial had a team, baseball team. It was very unique, very, very good team. For a small town, it was a very good team. Well, the only team they had there. And it was sponsored by the Santa Fe Railroad. So they had all the equipment they needed. They had all the time to practice and play. And thing about them is that they used to come to Albuquerque and play some of the best teams that they had in Albuquerque. And they did pretty well. Most of the time they won. Sometimes they lost, but most of the time they won. They used to go to El Paso and play those teams. And like same as Albuquerque, they used to beat some of those teams from the larger towns. Those were large towns. My dad was second base, played second baseman. And he was really good. He was good at playing. He used to be very famous for making double outs and triple outs. He was very fast. Another thing about my dad, well, they tried to have him try out for the big leagues. But he wasn't the only one. There was about two other members of that team, besides my dad, that were asked to go try with the big leagues. But as our history goes, our people aren't about to leave their hometown and their families. So they might have missed out on becoming real famous in the baseball games. My dad also was a person that was very strong and a very good fighter. There was a time when a man came by, you've seen in the Western movies and some of the movies, where there's a tough man that comes and he challenges everybody in the town, village or whatever, and in most cases he beats them all. That's what he did in San Marcial. He went through a whole bunch of people, a whole bunch of men, all sizes, all strong people, and he beat them all. So the superintendent of the shops there in San Marcial saw that, and he said, the only person that I know that might beat up this man, or at least give him a good fight, is Frank. So I'm going to go get him. So my dad was working up there in the locomotives, as he always did. And he says, Frank, let's go to the depot. He says, what for? Well, you just come with me. And my dad says, well, I'm very busy here. I've got to get this work out. And Mr. Piper said, I'm your boss. You're going to have to do what I tell you. What do I need over there? Nothing, just you. Come on over. So he went over there and he says, fight this man. And so that was the reason for him going there. That's what Mr. Piper wanted to see, what my dad could do. Well, my dad beat him up so bad, he cut his face, he cut him everywhere. Because when my dad hit a person, he'd knock a chunk of flesh out of their face. And so that man says no more. When my dad beat him up. There was another prize fighter by the name of Morio. They used to call him Kid Morio. He was a professional fighter. And this was a home person. But he traveled all over fighting. So my dad fought him in the ring there at the Opera House. And he beat him too. That was my dad. My uncles, were all larger people, and he was the smallest one of the whole family. He was 5'11". His brothers were all 6 foot and over, all of them.
What were your uncle's names?
The oldest was Anastasio, after my dad. Dad was the oldest. Then came Anastasio, and then Pete, and then Jose, and then Dan, and then Cruz. But Uncle Anastasio was as big as that door, and so was Uncle Pete. And so they made a comment one time. You know, when we fight somebody, we knock them clear across the room. But when my brother Kiko used to call him, fights, he not only knocks them across the room, but he slashes a chunk of their face off. That was my dad. Too bad I ended up such a weakling. But that's a story of my dad's life. Well, I think that maybe you might want to know when I got out of the service. Before I went in the service, I was working in El Paso. We were building airplane hangars, and I was called to the service. I was drafted then. You know, it was time for me to go. And they called me, and so I was supposed to clear out of there, which I did, clear my card. That's what you do when you move from one local to another. I cleared my card to come home to go into the service, and then I didn't clear into the house here, into the local here. So I lost about 4 years of seniority that I would benefited me if I had gotten credit for that. But what happened, I went into the service, and then when I came out, I thought that the money was real good. I could have gone to the university, go to school. First, I'd have to get my GED because I didn't have it. But when I came and I let him know that I had been in the service, I had been a member before, I had my book, and I showed it to him and said, well, you don't have to pay no initiation fee or nothing. You just come in and start working. So that sounded pretty good to me. It was, at that time, wasn't much like now. It was $1.35 an hour. At that time, it was real good money. So, you know, I was anxious to go to work. So I went to work. I should have gone to school. I would have been, it would have helped. But anyway, if I had gone to school, I wouldn't have been able to get married. Because soon after that, I got married. I met my wife in May. I got out in February. I met her in May, and we married in December. And but I went right to work at the carpentry trade. And very enjoyable. Carpentry work is very broad. There's all kinds of facets to it. Carpentry work it's got a lot of different facets to it, I guess you call it. Maybe the wrong term for lack of words. But anyway, you have furniture builders, you have fixture builders, you have rough carpenters, you have finished carpenters, you have all kinds of, and it's impossible to learn it all, but I got a taste of every one of them. The only thing I didn't do is mill work, which comes under the carpentry. I never did do that. I think I would have been good at that because I used to work at close tolerance in my work. I was very particular. I developed a reputation for being a good finished carpenter. I can't say that about the rough carpentry, the formwork and all that, because my health didn't help me much there. I always had foot problems, and that impeded my working at that type of work. But I did develop a reputation. I used to work in, like for example, J.C. Penney. I got to work there a long time ago. And then I got to know the person from Chicago, the main person, the construction head of the whole United States at J.C. Penney. And he knew me by my name. So when he came over into town to do one of the stores, I would be the first one hired, and therefore they would make me a job steward, and then I would be the last one to go. So I worked and worked and worked. Lots of overtime, lots of work. I also worked in store fixtures a lot, and banks, bowling alleys, and all that. And once I got acquainted with one of those bosses. They always had a list. They had me on the list. When they came into town, they called me, and if I was available, I'd go with them. And but I used to do, not to brag, but I used to be very particular about my work, my carpentry work. Pardon me?
That's some nice looking chili you got there, Grandpa.
You want to know about this chili?
Uh-huh.
Look. This chili is sun-dried. This chili is local, the original local chili in the state of New Mexico. There is no better chili than this. And this chili is being sun-dried, and it's already clean. It's ready for the blender. And this is like gold is to people that are interested in gold and money. This is gold to us, Hispanics. And now it's not just Hispanics. The whole world has become addicted to chili. This chili is the best there is. And I'm proud to show it. When originally I was preparing chili just for us, and then one day I decided that why not continue drying chili? It was easy. This was one thing that I could do with my impediment, with my handicap condition, and so I continued. And 2 years ago I dried 18 sacks, 17 sacks. This year I dried 15. It's a lot of chili. I have it all over. I have bags and bags and bags of it. And I sell it very reasonable. And I think this is mostly, or will be more beneficial to people, to women especially, that work and don't have time to process it and clean it. It's a lot of work. But I have nothing to do, and this is one thing that I can do. Dry this chili, clean it, dry it, and it's very much in demand. I can't keep up with the orders. I'm selling very reasonable. I have 2 bags in the back of the trunk. Jeffrey has 2 bags over there, great big bags like that, about 10, 12 12 bags to a bag, and I have 2 in the shop, and I have that sack, that and this sack over here, and what else do I have? And then that right there. And I have a lot of chili, a bag, but people don't want to pay that. And yet some people would. Some people that, if you knew, went around and talked to people that have the moolah,
Yeah.
Some are people over here, you know how we are. Half the time we're broke, all of us. You included, I think. ¿Cómo está saliendo esto?
Muy bien.
¿Qué más?
Tus consejos.
Consejos. Okay. But it would be better if you ask me questions and come out there.
Okay. Do you have any advice to your family at all?
What?
Porque su esposa está dormida. Gracias.
Bueno.
So, what kind of advice do you have for your family about life?
About my family?
Not anyone in particular. We won't pick on anybody in particular.
You don't want me to pick on anybody? On the waywards or the good ones? None of them?
No, just in general.
In general. Well, my advice is to stay close to the Lord. Follow the commandments of God the Father, and the teachings of Jesus Christ our Lord. In my view, they are very important. If a person wants blessings in this life, he better take pretty seriously the teaching of our Lord and the commandments of our Father. And I mean it. A lot of people don't take religion seriously. They don't take it seriously at all. Even in our family, and people that I know, when they go to Mass, it seems to me like we don't do the right thing when we go to Mass. And I guess I can be included in that too, because we're at a moment there at the Mass where we're in the presence of the Lord, and a lot of times we don't behave properly. I include myself in that. So my advice would be to obey the Lord as much as we can. Go by the commandments. We all know what the commandments are. Most of my family has had religious education, especially the younger ones. And I think we should go by what our Lord asked us to do, and take His advice very seriously. Because one day we're going to meet Him face to face, and we're going to have to give account for all our deeds. Be kind to your fellow man. If you see somebody in need and you can help him, help him. It's the best thing a person can do. Because, like God says, He cannot be outdone in take it out.
Okay.
Did you have it on?
No, it's off now.
Did you have it on when I said? Yes, you did. No, I'm close. I'm very close to death. I really am. When you get to this age, this is about the time. So one day, my family will be called and will say, Papa passed away, your dad passed away, your husband passed away, your grandpa passed away. So, did you want advice?
No, any messages for people?
I think I already said behave, didn't I?
Yeah.
Huh? Well, I could give you advice. Go on, put it on. I think you're getting me when I'm not supposed to, right? Huh? Okay, my advice is,
I could leave too if you just want it.
Oh, no.
Well, I'm going to see it anyway, so go ahead.
why do you want to leave?
No, go ahead.
My advice,
Specific people. Well, no, not specific people.
no. What I'm going to tell you is that if I could live my life again, I would never have smoked a cigarette in my life. I would never have taken a drink in my life. That's probably now the biggest part of my health right now. The results of overindulging with liquor and with tobacco. And when I had my heart attack, I had already quit smoking. And they told me if I had been a smoker then, I wouldn't have made it through the operation. As you know, I had open heart surgery for arteries. And then later on, I had my gallbladder, which almost took me away. Why God chose me to keep me, I don't know. Maybe He wanted me to provide chili for people. I don't know. I don't know why. I try to give good advice to my family, but they don't really listen. I wish they would.
Any messages for Andrew when he grows up?
If they could see through the eyes of experience, what experience age brings, and see the problems that are around the corner, and all that, to avoid sickness and disaster, financial disaster, and a lot of other things. There's a lot of people nowadays. I never threw my money away. I was a sailor and I was a drunkard, but I never threw money away. There's the saying about throwing money away like a drunken sailor. And a lot of people, young people, are doing that. They're not saving. They say, well, I can't take it with me. Like somebody in my family is told me, I'm going to do whatever I can, whatever I want. And I'm not going to be able to take it with me. And they don't heed the advice about your spiritual life, to have a spiritual life according to what God wants. You know, stay away from all these bad things. To Andrew, I would like to leave a message. I love him very much. And my grandfather, as I understand, loved me very much. But he died when I was about a year old. And I already left a message for Andrew in a letter. Davey has a letter that I wrote to him. Well, I did leave a message to Andrew in a letter that I gave to Debbie, and it has a little bit of advice for him. It tells a little bit about his grandpa, how much he loved him, and by the time he's able to read, I don't think I'm going to be around, but I want him to know that I love him, and I wish the best for him, and like I do for the rest of my grandchildren. Que Dios los bendiga, los cuide, los socorra, los ampara y los haga buenas personas. que tengan piedad y misericordia de los más necesitados que hay. I'll repeat that in English. That they have mercy and show a little love to those people that are less fortunate. That has been my lifetime ambition, to help people less fortunate. And thank God I've been able to do some of that. I've done a lot of that through Catholic Relief Services, which I know will reach the right people and it will be spent in the right way. And anybody around the neighborhood that needs a helping hand, open your hearts to them and help them. There's a lot of people that, if nothing else, if you can help them financially or material-wise, give them a smile, give them a kind word. This is a prayer that Father Fred M. Brand gave me when he was ordained a priest for the Archdiocese of Santa Fe. And this was on May the 27th, 1967. He has since passed away and was a beautiful priest, and this is the prayer that he gave me. Kindness, I shall pass this way but once. Any good thing, therefore, that I can do, and kindness that I can show to any human being, let me do it now. Let me not defer it or neglect it, for I shall not pass along this way again. That was Father Brand. May his soul rest in peace. But David, it's up. I already said. Que está muy bueno. Espera. Yo te suelto. No crees que te voy a tener fuerza. Ya anda. Nomás que está. Cuidado. Yo sabía. Él no puede dar pasos para arriba todavía. ¿Qué dices? ¿Que tienen dinero para ti?
Sí, que le dejó mi papá.
Ajá.
Es que vino mi papá y no me encontró.
¿A qué hora? I'm going to play a disc here, a song here, and this is about el San Marcial, and it's known El Corrido de San Marcial, and this happened in 1929. This took place in 1929, the flood in San Marcial, the great flood of San Marcial, New Mexico. And right after that, it's going to be Las Cuatro Milpas, because in San Marcial it happened in 1929, and there's a similarity between the two songs. The Cuatro Milpas came into existence, as far as I can recall, about 1926 or 7, around there, maybe earlier, and this came from Mexico. It's a very sad song, and it's very similar to what happened in San Marcial. That's why I parallel one with the other. And you're going to hear it now, and I hope it comes out clear, because the tape itself is quite old. So now I'm going to turn it on.
Una tarde muy triste. aquella casita tan blanca y bonita, lo triste que está. Las cosechas quedaron